Gentleman's time has expired. We'll now go to the Chair of the Oversight Subcommittee, the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Huizenga, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to move quickly, and good to see you again, Chair. I caught a little bit of the Senate hearings yesterday, and you had a lot of pressure to keep the sugar high going. And frankly, if the Fed and many of our colleagues had listened to what many of us were saying, we should have been weaned off that artificially low, cheap money that kept the party going, and frankly, we wouldn't be in this position. To reference Chair Greenspan's punch bowl analogy, not only did no one have the courage to remove the punch bowl, you had people cheering on the pouring of another bottle of 151 rum into the punch bowl. And here you got folks wanting to do the exact same thing. Let's spend more. And now here we are. You have an impossible decision to slow the economy or let everyone get crushed by inflation. And we know tightening means a slower economy. Slower economy means fewer jobs. Fewer jobs hit those who can least afford to lose a job. And so in short, the lower rungs of the economic ladder will suffer more than the rest of the ladder. So that's the state of play of where we're at. I have to hit a couple of quick issues here. I wanted to start off by discussing climate, especially given the Fed's announcement in January that it was going to conduct a pilot climate scenario analysis exercise. The Fed, along with the OCC and FDIC, have each issued proposed climate risk management principles for banks that you are attempting to finalize those by the end of the year, and the requirements don't stop at the border. The UK and the EU central banks are moving to require significant ESG disclosure regimes as well. I know the Fed is taking a look at commodities capital charges in the holistic review, but even though the Fed isn't forcing banks to encompass climate analysis in their stress tests, there are many initiatives at the Fed that are going to make it more costly for banks to finance traditional fossil fuel companies. So I want to ask you a very specific question. Will you commit that you will withhold support for a new capital rule that increases capital charges on bank activities in traditional energy companies?
You know, I can't sit here and promise what I will and will not vote for, because I don't know what's going to be in the proposal, but that's not the kind of thing I think we're looking at.
I'm sorry, it's not the kind of thing?
So this isn't about, this is about overall capital levels more than anything else, I think, rather than the specific thing you're talking about.
Okay. We're going to follow up on that because we need to have a real-time conversation about what that is going on there. I want to quickly switch topics and go in a different direction for this next question. I want to ask you about two opinions issued by your legal staff in November of 2019 and December of 2020 to the asset managers Vanguard and BlackRock. Mr. Chairman McHenry, I'd like to submit the two letters for the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. These opinions appear to outline the parameters of both how both Vanguard and BlackRock can operate without being deemed a bank holding company. In addition to the legal restrictions outlined by the bank holding company, these opinions listed out here in quite detail list out commitments that the companies would need to take to avoid being viewed as having, quote, control. These opinions also appear to provide assurances that the Federal Reserve Board staff would not recommend that the board find the asset managers to be bank holding companies. Further, it is unclear whether the board will take any steps beyond a periodic self-certification by the asset managers to monitor compliance with the condition that they, quote, not take any action to control a banking organization. As some asset managers play a larger role and clearly strive to influence policy in companies across the free market, we need to remain vigilant. So, Chair Powell, is the board taking any steps to assess or monitor whether Vanguard and BlackRock are complying with the commitments made in November of 2019 and December of 2020, respectively?
I would have to check and get back to you on that.
Okay.
Familiar with the issue.
I appreciate that, but that says to me that doesn't sound like there's an assessment that's taking place ongoing or scrutiny of that. Is somebody reviewing that, or is someone in charge of reviewing that?
Honestly, that's a very specific, narrow question. I'm quite familiar with the issue.
Well, it's specific and narrow to two companies, but not to an industry. I mean, that's what we need to be driving at. And I guess we need to find out whether there's somebody proactively reviewing these activities and these commitments that the companies have made as well as the Fed has made. So how often do you think they should be reassessed? Annually, monthly, biannually?
You know, this is a very narrow set of questions. I can get you great answers really easily, but I don't have them in my head.
I look forward to
Time's
those great
expired.
answers, and I yield
We'll
back.
now go